Every single day, our lives are shaped by all these rules and instructions. But have you ever actually stopped and wondered who writes them? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the hidden forces that decide the policies shaping our entire world.
So yeah, who writes the rules for our world? I mean, it sounds like a simple question, right? But the answer is anything but simple. This is the big mystery we're trying to crack today. Is it some shadowy group in a secret room calling all the shots? Or is it something way more complex, maybe even a little chaotic? Let's dive in and find out.
Okay, so first things first, let's get on the same page. What even is a policy? Think of it like a game plan. It's basically a set of instructions on what to do, and just as important, what not to do to get a specific result. Like improving healthcare, boosting the economy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that sounds pretty straightforward, right? But in the real world, oh man, making policy is messy. It's super complex, with all these different pieces moving at once. So how in the world do you even begin to make sense of it all without getting totally lost? Well, you need a map.
And lucky for us, a couple of brilliant thinkers, Walt and Gilson, actually made one. It's called the Health Policy Triangle. And don't let the name fool you. It's an amazing tool for understanding how pretty much any policy gets made. It's got 3 key corners we're going to break down.
All right, first up, context. The easiest way to think about this is the background, or the stage where this whole play happens. We're talking about everything from the economic situation and social pressures to cultural values, maybe even what's happening on the global stage. The point is, no policy just appears out of nowhere. The context is everything.
Okay, next corner, the actors. These are the players in the game. You've got your politicians, of course, but also lobbyists, big corporations, nonprofits, academics, and hey, even us, the public. Every single one of them is on the field, and they all have their own goals and their own agendas.
And that brings us to our final corner, which is actually 2 things in one: content and process. Content is the what. What's actually in the policy? What are the goals? What are the nitty-gritty details? And process is the how. How does it get made? What are the steps? So you've got the stage, the players, and the playbook. Seems simple enough, right? Well, not quite, because there's this invisible force that's pulling and pushing on this entire triangle. It influences the context, it makes some actors way more important than others, and it totally shapes the final policy. And that force is power.
So what do we mean by power here? It's actually pretty simple. Power is the ability to get what you want. That's it. It's the engine driving this whole machine. It's what decides who gets listened to, whose problems actually get solved, and at the end of the day, whose rules we all have to follow. But it's not always obvious.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. Power isn't just one thing. It has these 3 different faces. The first one is the one we all see: decision-making. That's someone actively pushing their agenda. But then there's the second face, which is way sneakier: non-decision-making. This is the power to make sure certain topics never even get discussed. And the third one, which is the most powerful of all, is basically thought control. It's shaping what people want and believe, so they just accept the way things are.
Which, of course, brings us right back to the million-dollar question. So, who really holds the power? If it's the secret ingredient to everything, who has it? The government? Big companies? Us? Well, this is a huge debate, and political scientists have basically landed on 3 main theories to explain it.
And here they are. This table breaks down the 3 big theories: pluralism, public choice, and elitism. And look, they each give a totally different answer. Under pluralism, power is spread out, and the state is just a neutral referee. But then you get to public choice theory, and suddenly the state itself is another player in the game, looking out for its own interests. And then there's elitism, which says a small, privileged group holds all the power, and the state is just a tool they use to get what they want. 3 completely different ways of seeing the world. So let's start with pluralism. You could kind of call this the optimistic theory. The idea here is that power isn't concentrated in one place. Instead, it's spread all over society, among tons of different competing groups. And the government? It just acts like a neutral referee, making sure everyone plays fair and helping find a compromise.
Okay, then we have public choice theory. This one starts off like pluralism. It agrees that power is spread out, but then it throws in a huge twist. It says the state is never neutral. Nope. Instead, the government, the agencies, the politicians, they're all just another group in the game fighting for their own power, bigger budgets, more influence, just like everyone else.
And finally, we get to elitism.
This theory basically takes the other two and throws them right out the window. It says, look, forget all that. At the end of the day, policy is dominated by a tiny, privileged minority. Whether it's because of their wealth, their connections, or their expertise, this elite group is the one really running the show, and they use the government to serve their own interests.
Now, obviously, how all this plays out depends on the political system you're in. Political scientists used to use categories like the ones you see here, but it's important to note these specific labels are pretty outdated now. The main takeaway, though, is that no matter what kind of system you're talking about, this fundamental struggle over who has power is always at the heart of it.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got our map, the policy triangle. We've identified the hidden force, power, and we have three competing theories about who's actually pulling the strings. That's a great foundation, but it all leads to what might be the most crucial question of all. How does power actually influence the policy process? I mean, really, on the ground. How do these big ideas, decision-making, agenda setting, all of it, turn into the actual specific rules that shape our lives? Figuring that out, well, that's the next level. That's getting to the heart of how our world is really run.
So why does any of this theory stuff matter? Well, because you can't play the game if you don't know the rules, or, more importantly, who's making them. Understanding this isn't just for a class or a test. It's the very first step to really seeing what's going on in the world, to having a real voice, and maybe, just maybe, to having a say and writing some of those rules yourself.